While training with Yoda to become a Jedi, Luke comes to a crossroads, a bit of a moral quandary. As we know, for the last 20-some-odd years, the evil Sith Empire has had control of the galaxy, and suffering will continue indefinitely until someone puts a stop to them. From the Jedi's perspective, Luke is this person. And to do so, Luke must be fully trained so he's powerful enough in his abilities and also in his mind and spirit.
Vader.
But after receiving a vision of his friends in pain and suffering, he decides he must instead go save them, while his Jedi masters urge him to stay and finish his training so that he will be equipped to save the universe. By The Empire Strikes Back, Lucas had begun introducing compelling dilemmas into the unfolding story of the saga, which among many things serve as a test of character for the protagonists. Tests that determine what the protagonists will learn about themselves, which will guide them along their journey throughout the story. Basically, the moral dilemma for Luke is saving the universe or his loved ones. And the universe is a big thing. You know, freedom, peace, democracy. But the bonds formed between friends is also a big thing. Luke understands the risks and the stakes of leaving while his training is incomplete. But also, he has a strong bond with his friends. And when push comes to shove, ultimately, Luke can't turn his back on his loved ones, even when he knows he's being lured into the oldest trick in the book. And it's hard to blame him. So, unable to shake the urge, Luke makes the decision to go against his master's advice and rushes off to aid his loved ones over the greater good of the galaxy. Now, obviously, if he stays, the pros are he can finish his training and therefore theoretically take on the Sith. But as great as that might be, the cons are his friends might die. If he goes, the pros are he could save his friends, but he runs the risk of dying or being turned to the dark side, which would certainly doom the galaxy. And
you will destroy all for which they have fought.
And not to mention, if Luke does go, that would also be giving in to his impulses, something Jedi should overcome. You get the point. So, the question is, did Luke make the right choice? If it had been any other Jedi, the answer would probably be no. But what makes Luke different? To begin exploring that, let's first look at the results of his choice to go to Bespin. Vader slices off his hand. He learns Vader is his father, and does he save anyone? No. In fact, even though Luke does resist the dark side, he almost dies, and his friends have to save him, thanks to Lando's getaway plan and to R2, who ends up saving them all. So maybe in a roundabout way, you might be able to say Luke made a right choice, at least in bringing R2. But his training is still incomplete. So how is he going to defeat the Sith, especially now that he knows Vader is his father? A fact that Yoda felt Luke was not ready for. Everything has changed now, and it looks like Luke hasn't accomplished much in his choice. Or did he? Darth Vader being Luke's father was the plot twist that shook the Star Wars fandom to its core in 1980. But I think what's even more important than that is what Luke does with this knowledge moving forward. Because along with these dilemmas and shocking revelations came the twist in what actually constitutes Luke's Jedi training and his destiny. So, if we want to get a clearer answer to the question at hand of whether or not he made the right choice, we'll have to look at what comes next. And well, with Luke's heart being as big as it is, he takes the noble route and decides to try to redeem his father. So, after surrendering himself to Imperial soldiers, Luke attempts to persuade his father to come back to the good side. But Vader isn't having any of it. He then takes Luke to the Emperor, who informs Luke that he and the rebels have been lured into a trap. Unable to resist the heroic urge to destroy the Emperor and desperate to save the rebellion, Luke grabs his laser sword and a fight with his father ensues, just as the Emperor wanted. And after Vader threatens to turn Luke's sister Leia to the dark side, Luke explodes in a fury of hate and anger and overpowers Vader in an attempt to kill him, after swearing he could never do that, and slices off his hand. The Emperor is pleased by this and urges Luke to finish his father off. Fortunately, during this failing attempt to redeem his father, Luke starts becoming aware of his actions and moves his focus to what he's just done. And in gazing upon Vader's missing hand and then at his own, he sees the similarities between he and his father, that he must have been turned the same way, impulsively trying to protect and defend his loved ones.
I'm sorry, I don't have a choice.
And in seeing this, Luke takes compassion on Vader, loving him unconditionally, whether he returns to the good side or not. Luke then casts his lightsaber aside, refusing to go down the dark path, thus winning the moral victory. Anakin is touched by the unconditional love Luke has shown him and decides he can't let Luke die. So, while Palpatine is preoccupied with the sadistic pleasure of killing Luke, Anakin, despite grievous risk to himself, grabs his now former master and throws him down an ominous chasm, finally putting an end to the horror.
What sort of chasm?
So, with his love and resolve, Luke has finally mastered himself. And by doing so, he inspires Anakin to pull himself out of the deep freeze of his Sith life, so he can ultimately redeem himself. So, Luke's turning point is when he finally realizes firsthand what must have brought his father to the dark side, by becoming aware of his own dark side, and therefore seeing how similar he and his father are, which wouldn't have happened if he hadn't lost his hand and learned Vader was his father, when he rushed off to save his friends. So although it probably wouldn't have worked out for any other Jedi to rush off to Cloud City, for Luke it was all a necessary part of his unique destiny, because his father was unique.
You were right about me.
And Anakin's choices helped shape Luke's destiny, but it all ended up with them helping each other reach their destinies. And Luke's destiny is to continue the Jedi line. And since everyone has a destiny, what was Anakin's? Well, what did he do? Oh, you know, he killed the Emperor and ended the evil reign of the Sith, so maybe it had something to do with that. And that's a pretty big thing. Makes you almost wonder if there may have been a prophecy about it. One thing we do know about Anakin from the original trilogy is that he had a family, unlike Yoda and Ben, meaning that might have been uncommon for the Jedi life, which, as Yoda says, requires the deepest commitment, and it's hard to be committed to prioritizing the good of the galaxy and one's family at the same time. A Jedi's biggest strength and motivation in life is to serve and protect the galaxy as a whole, experiencing a universal love. Anakin was the one-of-a-kind individual who had a foot in both worlds. Having lived the childhood of a regular person, Anakin's biggest strength and motivation in life was to protect the loved ones in his own personal world. From ancient myths all the way up to modern tales, the Chosen One is usually part higher power, part human, and their journey is all about getting in touch with and reconciling both natures. And this is where I think the beauty of the prophecy in Star Wars ties in. Anakin restored the balance by protecting his loved ones, the only way it really could be. And the fulfillment of the prophecy is about the uniting of man and spirit, Jedi and regular people. When it comes to destroying the Sith who are disturbing the balance, this is about everybody, not just the Jedi. The Jedi and regular people live in two different worlds. But when it comes to the sake of the galaxy and the equilibrium of the Force, they need to come together in one integrated being to act on behalf of everyone, to fight the overwhelming dark. It has to be about restoring balance to the Force and honoring loved ones, hand in hand. Love is what pushes us to do things we otherwise would hesitate to do, which can be either a good thing or a bad thing, as we see with Anakin's fall and his redemption. Life is about love, but also with humility, a sacrificing of one's ego. Anakin, as a representative of both Force sensitives and regular people, had a proclivity for close bonds.
I don't like sand.
But he still had to come to a place where he could be willing to sacrifice himself. Consumed by fear and greed, he had failed in his purpose. But what he saw in Luke inspired him to finally do the right thing. And what Anakin accomplished was mutually beneficial to both his being a father protecting his son and a Jedi saving the universe. The driving force behind a prophecy in most tales is to get the hero into a place where they can learn about themselves and strengthen their own character so that they can decide on their own to do the right thing because they personally want to, regardless of the prophecy. They need to become an exemplary being with the understanding of what makes us human to act on behalf of all of them. So looking at Luke's dilemma, he chose what he felt was best, and it almost ended up playing right into the Sith's hands. And while he did make some mistakes, what's important is that he learned from them, and in his own unique way, it paid off. Yeah, it seems in this genre of stories, the source of any given prophecy would want the heroes to be the kind of people who would honor things like friendship and love. I mean, is the universe really worth saving if it's full of people who don't care about each other? Thanks so much for watching.